The palace of the Zerathians floated like a crystal jewel above the swirling gases of their home planet. Its towers sparkled under the strange sunlight, and every surface glimmered as though polished by magic. Inside, the halls were filled with the elite warriors of the alien civilization. Each one was taller than a human, with shimmering skin that reflected colors no human had words for. They moved with perfect precision, their muscles coiled like springs, their multi-limbed forms displaying strength and agility, unmatched by anything a human could imagine. Today was the day of the royal test, a challenge so difficult that not one warrior had passed it in generations. It was meant to determine who would protect Princess Lyra, the young ruler whose sharp mind and playful nature were as renowned as her beauty. Warriors from all corners of the empire had gathered, confident in their skills and certain that victory was theirs. Far below, in the polished corridors of the palace, Ethan, a human janitor, pushed his mop with slow, steady motions. His small frame and plainclothes made him almost invisible, compared to the magnificent warriors preparing for the trials. He had arrived on the planet a few months ago as part of a diplomatic exchange between Earth and the Zerathian Empire. Cleaning the palace was his duty, and he thought little of the grandeur around him. The shining towers, the crystal floors, the alien statues, all were just part of his workplace. Meanwhile, the warriors were being tested in the palace's central hall. The first challenge was a leap across anti-gravity pits. The floor dropped away into a void only bridged by floating platforms. Each warrior sized up the distance, calculated angles, and leapt. One misjudged and vanished into the void, only to be magically rescued but utterly humiliated. Another tried to overthink, hesitated too long, and stumbled onto a platform that tilted beneath him, sending him sliding into the air. Every elite failed in some spectacular, almost comical way. Princess Lyra observed them from her throne with a mixture of amusement and frustration. Her eyes sparkled as she noted the warriors' struggles. "Do they all fail this easily?" she whispered to her attendant. Her attendant, a smaller, delicate alien with skin like liquid silver, shrugged. "They are the best in the Empire, Princess. Perhaps the test is impossible." Lyra smirked. "Impossible maybe for them, but perhaps someone unexpected would succeed." She let the words hang in the air, teasing the possibility. Back. In the lower halls, Ethan pushed his mop past a set of mirrored doors. The sounds of the trials echoed down to him, shouts, grunts, the occasional metallic crash. He paused for a moment, listening. For all their training, the warriors seemed oddly clumsy. He shook his head and returned to his work, imagining how exhausting those trials must be. The princess, growing impatient, decided to try something unusual. "Perhaps I should pick someone random," she murmured aloud. Her gaze drifted down the hall, past the fallen warriors, to the figure of the human janitor moving quietly on the polished floor. She leaned forward, a playful grin crossing her face. With a sudden motion, she extended a hand and pinched Ethan lightly on the shoulder. Ethan froze. The sensation was sharp, and he spun around, eyes wide. He had never seen anything like her. Towering above him on her throne, Princess Lyra had a presence that was impossible to ignore. Her eyes glimmered with amusement as she looked down at him. "You," she said, pointing with a delicate finger, "will be my contestant." Ethan blinked. "Me? Contestant? I'm just the janitor." The princess laughed, a sound like crystal chimes. "Exactly. That is why I choose you." She waved a hand, dismissing the protests of her attendants and the snickers of the elite warriors. "Let's see if the human can do what all of you cannot." The warriors erupted in laughter, their disbelief loud and unrestrained. "A human? Are you joking, princess?" one demanded, his voice deep and commanding. Lyra shook her head, still smiling. "No joke, let him try. It might be entertaining." Ethan's heart pounded. He had no training, no combat skills, no knowledge of alien culture beyond what he had read in books. The idea of competing against the finest warriors of a galaxy-famous civilization was terrifying. Yet there was something in the princess's eyes, a spark of challenge, curiosity, even encouragement that made him nod. Somehow he knew he could not refuse. The first trial was deceptively simple. The warriors assumed it would be easy for any competitor of decent intelligence. It involved a complex puzzle embedded into the floor, with glowing symbols that needed to be activated in the correct order. The symbols also shifted with pressure, meaning a wrong step could reset the puzzle entirely. The elite warriors attacked the task with precision, calculating angles, testing patterns, and overanalyzing every move. One by one they failed, triggering false mechanisms or accidentally sending themselves tumbling into harmless but humiliating traps. Their frustration grew, their faces rigid with concentration, while Ethan watched quietly from a safe distance. When it was his turn, Ethan hesitated. He had no idea what the symbols meant, but he noticed patterns the others had overlooked. They were not complicated. They followed simple sequences, almost like musical notes. He stepped carefully, touching symbols in what seemed to be a random order at first. To everyone's astonishment, the floor lit up beneath him, one symbol after another until the puzzle completed itself. The hall fell silent. The elite warriors froze, their jaws dropping. Ethan turned to look at Princess Lyra, expecting mockery or disappointment. Instead, he found her smiling, eyes wide with genuine amazement. "Well," she said softly, "perhaps the human has a chance after all." The second trial was a test of agility. Platforms suspended in midair rotated and shifted unpredictably. The warriors had practiced for years, yet they misjudged timing and balance, falling with thuds that echoed across the hall. Ethan, though small and inexperienced, moved cautiously. He relied on instinct rather than calculated technique. His human reflexes, honed from years of quick thinking and adaptability in mundane situations, allowed him to avoid traps that confounded the others. One elite warrior, a six-limbed giant named Corin, sneered as Ethan passed a particularly dangerous section. "Beginner's luck," he growled. But as Ethan continued without error, even Corin's sneer faltered. The princess clapped lightly, delighting in the unfolding spectacle. "Clever little human," she said almost to herself. "Perhaps I underestimated your kind." After a brief pause, the third trial began. This one combined physical skill with mental acuity. Symbols had to be pressed in a precise sequence while balancing on a narrow bridge. Mistakes would reset the trial and trigger harmless but humiliating sprays of colored mist. The elite warriors struggled again, their perfectionism betraying them as they overthought every step. Ethan, however, moved intuitively. He watched the patterns of the mist, gauged the timing, and simply acted. 1, 2, 3. He pressed the symbols without hesitation. The trial concluded successfully, and the bridge glowed, signaling his victory. The hall erupted with murmurs of astonishment. Even the palace attendants, who had grown used to the princess's unpredictable whims, whispered in disbelief. How could a human so small and untrained succeed where the mightiest warriors of an alien empire had failed? Ethan, exhausted but smiling, turned to look at Princess Lyra. She leaned forward, her expression a mixture of amusement and admiration. "Not bad for a janitor," she teased lightly. "It seems humans have unexpected talents." The elite warriors, humiliated but still alive, glared at Ethan. Their pride had been wounded. All their training, all their preparation, and they had been bested by someone they assumed was insignificant. They could not understand how a human could succeed, yet the evidence was undeniable. As part one of the story closed, Ethan stood in the center of the hall, panting and bruised, but very much still in the running. Princess Lyra leaned back, eyes sparkling with curiosity. She had chosen him on a whim as a joke, and yet he had proven something remarkable, something even the greatest warriors of the empire could not achieve. The palace buzzed with tension and excitement. No one could predict what the next trials would hold, but one thing was certain. A human janitor had just entered the history books of the Zarathian Empire, and Princess Lyra, who had started the day bored and impatient, now watched with genuine intrigue, wondering what other surprises the little human might have in store. The sun of the alien planet was low in the sky, casting long glimmers of light across the crystalline towers of the Zarathian palace. The hall where the royal test continued buzzed with anticipation. Ethan, the human janitor, had already surprised everyone by passing the first set of trials. His success had left the elite warriors stunned, and whispers ran through the palace like wildfire. No human had ever attempted, let alone survived, even a single challenge. And here he was, standing unscathed in the heart of the competition. Princess Lyra sat on her throne, her eyes gleaming with amusement. She had chosen Ethan as a joke, a whim of curiosity, but now her playful experiment had become an intriguing puzzle. How could a human, so small and ordinary by their own standards, succeed where trained warriors had failed? The next trials were designed to be even more difficult, combining strength, intelligence, and instinct. The palace attendants ushered the competitors to a massive arena suspended high above the city. Gravity fields shifted unpredictably, and glowing platforms rose and fell like waves. The test was called the Maze of Balance, and it had been impossible for even the most skilled warriors to navigate perfectly. The elite warriors leapt first. Their movements were precise, rehearsed, and full of controlled power. Yet each one faltered. One misjudged the shifting gravity and fell awkwardly, saved by an invisible force field but flailing across the air. Another landed on the wrong platform, triggering a mechanism that sent a harmless but humiliating spray of light mist all over him. The spectators gasped, some struggling to hide their laughter. Ethan approached the arena cautiously. He had no experience with gravity fields or alien platforms, but he had something the warriors lacked: instinct. He observed the patterns, the timing of the rising and falling platforms, and the rhythm of the mist sprays. Instead of trying to calculate every movement like the warriors, he acted intuitively. Step by step he advanced, feeling the shifts in gravity with each careful placement of his foot. Princess Lyra leaned forward, intrigued. "Look at him," she murmured. "He doesn't overthink. He simply moves." Ethan reached the center of the arena, his heart pounding, sweat on his brow. For a moment he wobbled, unsure of the next leap. But then he remembered something from his own life on Earth. How quick thinking and observation had kept him out of trouble countless times. He adjusted, stepped carefully, and landed safely. The crowd erupted into applause, many of the alien warriors now watching him with a mixture of respect and disbelief. The next challenge was more cerebral. A holographic display appeared, showing intricate alien symbols that formed a puzzle of logic, language, and cultural knowledge. The elite warriors struggled. They overanalyzed, trying to apply years of training and study to each symbol, only to trigger mechanisms that reset the puzzle. Frustration spread across their faces. Ethan stared at the symbols, unsure at first, but he noticed simple patterns. Some symbols repeated, others mirrored each other. Using his human intuition, he pressed the sequences in a way that seemed almost careless yet precise. The puzzle lit up, confirming that he had completed it. Even the palace attendants gasped. The impossible had become possible. Princess Lyra's smile widened. "Interesting," she whispered. "You are different." The final trial was the most dangerous of all. It combined everything: agility, intelligence, and moral judgment. A narrow bridge stretched across a pit that seemed endless. Floating platforms moved unpredictably along the path, some disappearing entirely for brief moments. Symbols needed to be pressed in a specific sequence, but the sequence could only be deduced by observing the reactions of robotic guardians stationed along the path. One wrong move would reset the trial. The elite warriors approached confident. They had trained for years, had studied every nuance of Zarathian culture, and still, they faltered almost immediately. One misjudged a platform and fell. Another pressed the wrong symbol, triggering a harmless but humiliating trap that left him covered in colored mist. The failures were humiliating, and the spectators whispered excitedly, watching the tiny human poised to enter the trial next. Ethan took a deep breath. Fear prickled his skin, but he did not let it control him. He watched the robotic guardians, noting how they moved and reacted. He stepped onto the bridge, focusing on rhythm rather than raw strength. When a platform disappeared, he adjusted instinctively, timing his next move perfectly. As he pressed each symbol, he observed the guardians' reactions, understanding the pattern without needing a guidebook or years of training. Princess Lyra could not hide her admiration. "He's learning faster than I expected," she said softly, almost to herself. "He is clever." Halfway across the bridge, a sudden shift caused Ethan to stumble. For a moment, panic rose in his chest, but he steadied himself, recalling every small adjustment he had made so far. Step by step, he regained balance, pressing the remaining symbols in order. The bridge glowed, signaling his completion of the trial. The hall erupted in cheers. Even the previously scornful elite warriors bowed their heads in respect. Ethan, exhausted and bruised, stood at the center of the arena, panting heavily but smiling. He had done it. Against all odds, he had passed the most difficult trials in the Zarathian Empire. Princess Lyra descended from her throne, moving gracefully through the cheering crowd. She stopped in front of Ethan, her expression a mixture of pride and amusement. "Congratulations," she said. "You have done what no warrior before you could. You have passed the royal test." Ethan blinked, still catching his breath. I did?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, you have shown courage, ingenuity, and adaptability. You have proven that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from training or might, but from thinking differently and trusting your instincts." The alien warriors, humbled and amazed, looked at him with a newfound respect. Some struggled to hide their embarrassment, having been bested by someone they had underestimated from the start. Others approached him, offering quiet nods of acknowledgement. Ethan realized that he was no longer just a janitor. He had become a symbol of human potential. Lyra smiled, her eyes twinkling. "You may have entered this test as a joke, but you leave as something much more important. You are a reminder that greatness can come from the most unexpected places." Ethan felt a mix of relief, pride, and disbelief. The palace that had seemed impossible to navigate, filled with creatures he could hardly understand, now felt like a place where he had earned a small piece of respect. He had faced fear, adapted to the unknown, and succeeded against all odds. The trials had ended, but a new chapter was beginning. Princess Lyra offered him a position as royal protector and advisor, bridging the strengths of humans with the might of the Zarathians. It was a role that promised challenges, adventure, and a chance to make a real difference in the Empire. As Ethan stood beside the princess, looking out at the gleaming towers and the swirling gases of the planet below, he realized that life had changed in ways he could never have imagined. A playful pinch had led to a trial, a challenge, and ultimately recognition. The palace, the warriors, and even Princess Lyra herself had all witnessed the triumph of something they had not expected: the courage and cleverness of a human janitor. For the first time, Ethan understood what it meant to be part of something larger than himself. He had faced impossible odds, yet he had emerged victorious, not through strength alone, but through resilience, observation, and heart. And in the eyes of Princess Lyra, he saw not just amusement, but genuine respect and curiosity for the human who had defied expectations. The palace echoed with celebration, yet for Ethan, the victory felt quiet and personal. He had entered the trials as a janitor, an ordinary human in an extraordinary place. He left as a hero, a symbol of what humans could achieve, even in the most alien and challenging of worlds. And somewhere deep in the crystalline halls of the palace, Princess Lyra smiled to herself, already imagining what new adventures awaited the clever human she had once chosen as a joke. She had discovered that sometimes the smallest spark could ignite the brightest flame. And in Ethan, that spark had grown into a blaze that no alien warrior could ignore. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the palace in a golden glow, and Ethan, the janitor who had conquered the royal test, looked forward to the days ahead. He had survived, he had won, and he had proven something extraordinary, not just to the aliens but to himself. Humanity, it seemed, had made its mark in the stars.